Video game worlds don't get much more compelling than Elden Ring's. Upon entering Limgrave, the game's initial area, your eyes scan the horizon. A grand elevated castle to your left, a church just ahead, a massive tree glowing unnaturally to your right. Questions begin to arise. How should you proceed? And what is going on in this world? So much of our modern world is built around accessibility. Almost everything in our lives is built with precision in mind, to increase ease of use and to create zero friction for us. In video games, we are used to having our next objective clearly indicated on screen, often with an accompanying counter that informs us exactly how far away said objective is. We are comfortable with games that dutifully catalog our side quests in neat little menus for our future perusal. We are more than familiar with overflowing maps, littered with icons of different colors and shapes, surefire signs of distant towers to climb and villages to liberate. How refreshing, then, is it when Elden Ring does none of these things? You may feel discomfort in these initial moments as you stare out into the distance and contemplate how to proceed. You may indeed wish for the game to be less obtuse, to hold your hand just a little, and it will give you exactly that, just a little guidance. But aside from a strand of gold pointing you to some objective that may not ever be clear, you are on your own to determine how to explore this world. You must be a cartographer here in this unknown land. You are in possession of only a nearly blank map for you to fill in, and the only way to chart this new territory is to observe the little indicators that are present on your map. Go there to obtain a map fragment, and then make the mental connection that this obscure symbol means map piece. Until you realize that, and begin making a habit to visit these spots to fill in your map, the map will remain stubbornly incomplete. There will only be the mere suggestion of distant lands, clouded by fog, a shorthand for the unknown, as speculative and non-committal as a great sea monster lurking on the border of a medieval map. The lands between could stretch on forever, or end right there in Limgrave. If the game had only contained Limgrave, it would not have wanted for more. The density of terrain and experiences in this region alone are more than enough to satisfy the requirements of a less ambitious game. Gray beaches populated by unholy creatures, cliffside caves occupied by tricksters and murderers, windswept rolling hills, dense forests embedded with secrets, castle ruins buffeted by crashing waves, ambiguous characters who seek means to their own ends, dragons lying in wait for opportunities to snuff out life. Maybe none of that on its own sounds genre-defying, but what elevates this world is its ability to awe and surprise. You may, for instance, be wandering through a wooded area, a haze concealing much of your periphery, sneaking past bears, some sleeping, some alert, when you come across a stone structure wholly incongruous with the surrounding area. You ponder this strange building for a moment before stepping inside. The room you enter isn't much of a room at all, just an enclosed space with an elevator in the middle. You step on the button to make the elevator descend, and beams of light protrude forth as if there were some celestial pulley system. You plunge into darkness, punctured only by lit torches hanging on Gothic walls. Perhaps an entire minute lapses before you see any signs that your destination is within reach. It doesn't make sense. Somehow, in this underground space, there are stars like scattered diamonds spilled out over a purple sky. You get off the elevator and you realize you're in this ancient subterranean city, this massive, sprawling area with its own spiritual deity, its own sky. And in that moment, you ask yourself, maybe for the first, certainly not the last time, What the hell is this game? This world, more than most any other, will subvert expectations so much that the only remaining expectation will be anything is possible. The game instills an enticing knowledge that you will be rewarded if you pay close attention and experiment. There are illusory floors, illusory walls, entire illusory bridges. There are perilous jumps to distant ledges that seem impossible, but usually aren't. Whole boss fights, cellars, important items can be found in these obscure places. In fact, huge percentage points of the game's overall content, without question, are tucked away through means so esoteric as to guarantee that most players will never see them. It's precisely because of the degree of experimentation, wincing before a death-defying leap, swinging your sword against another nondescript wall in the hopes that it will dissolve into nothing, that the game feels like it is activating a part of your brain that is normally turned off while playing other games, racing from objective to objective, checking off a side quest along the way, the entire map known to you, or at least predictable enough to never question its internal logic. In Elden Ring, through exploration and your own cleverness, or others, you can make the world as straightforward as it allows, or you can test its boundaries, opening it up to reveal the depths of its entirety, like a massive food challenge-sized ice cream cone, whose initial scoop was strawberry, but then it quickly became cookie dough, then orange sherbet, mint chocolate chip, layers upon layers until you reach the bottom of the cone, which is full of gummy bears and Reese's Pieces. To quote Meatloaf, "There ain't no Coupe de Ville hiding at the bottom of a Cracker Jack box." If Meatloaf had been around to witness the launch of Elden Ring, he may have been forced to write a sequel song, conceding that, sometimes indeed, there is a Coupe de Ville hiding at the bottom of a Cracker Jack box. Elden Ring is a Cracker Jack box, with no peanuts, Coupe de Villes plural, tucked away furtively under tremendous handfuls of big, billowy, sweet caramel corn. The world is so massive, it is possible to overindulge, or to lose momentum in your quest to see more, advance further, get by particularly challenging bosses. In this case, the best solution is almost always to simply try a different direction. When I struggled initially with the first major boss of the game, I decided I'd venture afield of the safe and familiar Limgrave and see what lay to the east. As I scaled the cliff and set my eyes toward the horizon, I felt the hope of reaching a safe place to acquire weapons and levels turn into a crushing sense of dread. The sky a bloody smog, as hellish and inhospitable as a Wayne Barlow painting. I saw a skeleton-faced cliff, giant crows the size of trees, rot that pockmarked the land like pink and gray barnacles on the belly of some ancient whale, doomed to swim eternally in the waters of perdition. I left as quickly as I came, assuming this must be the very end of the game. This is not the last area of the game, nor is it even essential for you to ever step foot into to reach the ending. This foreboding, accursed place that had been agonizingly crafted to be perhaps humanity's definitive rendition of hell was not even main mission centric. But that's Elden Ring for you. You go to a place, get the lay of the land, pick up a map piece, press on or head back to known territory. In this case, I decided I'd rather take on what I knew to be the game's first major boss, instead of what I presumed to be the game's last area. I beat him and stormed a castle, which was one of the most impressive interior spaces ever in a game. To reach the boss of this area, I could have entered through the main gate, where I would have surely been summarily ground into dust by the overwhelming force awaiting me on the other side. Instead, I opted to go for a route that would have me moving through hollowed out strands of castle wall, past hawks intent on doing battle, their talons replaced by piercing blades. The depth and verticality present in Stormvale Castle force another reckoning, a pause, an exhale. Once again, the question of, what the hell is this game? By the time I arrived at the castle, I was 30 hours in. I'd thought the open world to be so vast, so suffuse with content, that this castle would serve as mere pretext to advance me to the next part of the map. A couple rooms and then a boss before funneling me back into the open world. This, though, was something else entirely. This was an immaculately considered interior space, which held secrets in abundance, a multitude of varied and memorable enemy encounters, and traversal options so numerous as to span sub-castle terrors and rooftop daredevilry. So little of it is necessary, but by now you feel a euphoria so intense that you need to see everything this world has to offer. I was reminded of a Fisher-Price castle playset I had as a kid. There were banners emblazoned with faces of celebrated royalty, knights swinging maces overhead, a cell to store an unruly prisoner. I would station knights along the turrets, where they would battle to the death, or at least get locked up and have the key thrown away. The playset was simple. There were no hidden gods or capacious bedrooms. All that was there was what lay in front of me, plus whatever my imagination could furnish it with. The playset was just a hunk of plastic. My imagination was doing most of the heavy lifting. But in thinking about this castle, this world in my mind's eye, I began to think about what a fictional world is in the first place. It is a pastiche. A fictional world is inevitably drawing upon our own world, our history, and however many other fictional worlds before it. Elden Ring, in name and form, draws inspiration from Lord of the Rings. The game is clearly drawing as well on the distinct iconography of Berserk. There's the creeping sensation of dread evoked by the presence of alien gods we are familiar with from Lovecraft. In gameplay and world design, the game is drawing upon previous games from the developer like Sekiro and Dark Souls. This combination alone, while delicious, was to be expected. This was ground that would have provided a thoroughly engaging world in and of itself. But it is as if From Software booked an entire buffet, put all the tables together, and hurriedly arranged these juicy morsels. The steaks and lobster tails in the center of the table, and said, obviously we are going to have these, but what else are we going to bring to the table? How about a series of giant lobster-infested lakes with a dragon guarding a magic key that grants you entry into Hogwarts? Put it on the table. You know, I really like the vibe in Midsummer. Windmills, gyrating village women, say no more. I'm thinking we have this castle built in the center of a volcano, right? And there's a bunch of snake people. Snake people? Well, you gotta understand, there was the snake god, and the king wanted his power, so he let the snake god swallow him. Please, put it on the table. This prevailing ethos of more creates a game world that is very much a buffet for the player, and it's one they can engage with in any way they want. The game provides a baffling number of ways to move forward. Entire boss battles that can be skipped, choices to scale a mountain and kill a dragon, or gather 2 halves of a medallion to activate an elevator that takes you up to the same area. There are options that emerge in the world, perhaps in the way the player is unconscious of, that ensure that each player's experience is an adventure, ready and primed for the telling of their tale. The world longs to be talked about. The best time to play it is at launch, when a vast community is concurrently charting the scope of the map, sharing discoveries, engaging in a dialogue, and to have the knowledge that the world is so vast, so laden with secrets, that it cannot, even with what seems like the strength of the entire internet, be demystified in 1 week or 3 weeks, which makes the world feel complicated and, for those initial weeks, unknowable in its entirety. One can enjoy this world very much, with only the story that is playing out in their head. But the world deepens in complexity when accounting for the richness of lore that is doled out like cups of jello to prisoners. Most of what I know about the inner workings of this place comes from item descriptions, swords and shields that tell of the fall of great cities, blood packs, and ogresses with insatiable appetites. To put it simply, it's cool to fight a sword-wielding snake man, but cooler still when you know how that unholy union came to be. This game, like the Dark Souls series before it, activates an archaeological impulse in people, sifting through sand like Egyptologists who are content with shards of pottery, but keep at it for the promise of an Akhenaten level discovery that shatters the previously known history into a million pieces. An entire online community built around discussing this lore and its implications lends the world a feeling of endlessness, a conversation that refuses to flicker out when the credits roll, instead spilling into our world like the best fiction does. As someone who has loved the contained, intricate spaces of Dark Souls in the past, I wondered initially what advantages going open world would lend the designers. It's clear that they took immense pleasure in answering this question in a variety of ways. A feeling of calm upon passing through an area perfectly safe during the day, to have that feeling shattered by the unforeseen presence of a boss who only comes out at night. Riding your horse through a valley, to have a dragon swoop down and set the ground ablaze. Treasure chests that, when opened, issue smoke and transports you to some part of the map so distant from where you began that your conception of the true size of the world is once again forced to broaden significantly. Some of my favorite moments were of being whisked away to somewhere high up, looking down on a location that I could marvel at from a distance, but could not yet access. The game does this many times, building anticipation as you ponder cities resplendent, or destroyed, or altogether alien from secluded vantage points. What could they be hiding? As a traveler, these sweeping views serve as billboards. Come visit Lanedale, bask in the glory. The size of the map allows the scale of boss battles to be elevated to new levels. When I finally conquered my fear of Caelid and reached the major boss of that area, what awaited me was a beach, stretching on to points unseen in every direction, countless human bones in bits and pieces at my feet, and directly across from the hills of sand, some bestial form firing me-seeking arrows from an impossible distance. This battle called to mind the Omaha beach scene in Saving Private Ryan. The soldiers know what they're up against as they desperately try to move forward, inch by inch, against an opposing force so obviously in control of the land they find themselves in. And indeed, the game seems to acknowledge the unlikelihood of success in this place by scattering summoning signs throughout the arena to call upon NPC warriors to your aid, and standing piles of weapons to hide behind for a brief moment of respite. This battle brilliantly uses an innocuous portion of the map to host a boss fight that is of a different sort than anything From Software have made up until this point. This moment, the confluence of open world traversal and traditional epic boss battle, made for one of Elden Ring's greatest accomplishments. General Radahn can dash across the sand on horseback, pursuing you to the furthest ends, and when he reaches his second phase, he will disappear into the air, only to reappear as a meteor, homing in on you, lighting up the night with a fiery fury. The scale, the spectacle expanding until this corner of the map can no longer contain all of this fight's impact. Once you've finally felled Radahn, a barrage of falling stars pass by overhead, the largest of which strikes an area far from where you are now standing, and allows you to access, via a massive crater in the earth, an eternal city. This is a world that refuses to be stationary, that can be remade by the falling of stars, by the whims of gods. Part of the world's magic comes from its music. A score that is by turns elegiac or awe-inspiring or fear-inducing. Once, I had passed through a mine rife with aquamarine crystals that shone strangely in the dark. The ambient score a thin, persistent buzz, like a swarm of bees some distance away. Left alone with my thoughts as I reached daylight once again, high up on a mountain. From this vantage, I took stock of where I was heading and where I had been. I continued over wooden staircases built into the face of the mountain, dispatching bats who had become irate that I was in their shadows, wondering where this mountain would spit me out. Then I heard something discordant, singing, apparently diegetic, coming from up ahead. A dirge, sung in Latin, forceful enough to compel me to it, like iron to a magnet. The singer was an old woman, her body exposed to the weather, her chest a mere rib cage, her shoulders drooping down into flesh-colored wings. A harpy. I let her sing as I slew her companions. She knew loss, and she would know it again. But I thought of this moment often, in this game where, if you can lock onto it, you should probably kill it before it kills you. Here was a creature who meant more to me alive. I love this choice, where before there was kill or be killed, now there's leave it the hell alone. This is another crucial factor in enlivening this world. The wide-ranging bestiary. There are dollar store squishy toy lizards whose eyes bulge from their sockets. There are majestic wolves with shining red fur who bare their teeth at you. There are gaping-mouthed monstrosities who seek to peel away your flesh with their many grasping arms. And then there are the harpies who sing their doleful tune, or the floating jellyfish who seem only to desire companionship, or the jars who walk around proudly swinging their arms and legs, icons in this world. Why should every creature be adversarial? At times, the fights I didn't have were just as memorable as the very best boss encounters. By having such a massive open world that prevents you from ever having a godlike, full-range view of the landscape, until the very end, and maybe even beyond that, the question of, have I seen everything, will persist. I think I've seen everything, but in my heart, I know that I couldn't have. And to me, that's exciting. To know that there's something there that I've never seen before, waiting to be found, but just as content to remain hidden. Maybe in the end, the reason why this world works as well as it does is because it never gives you what you want. Instead, it gives you what you will want. Elden Ring represents a resetting of parameters, a tectonic shift in what was thought to be possible, a shooting star crash landing onto our known world, its gaping crater still smoldering. We are left to wonder what now will emerge from it.